Longtime entrepreneur Ed Bahoura decided to venture into the education business and became a franchisee of Sylvan Learning Centers in Southeast Michigan. He shares the Sylvan Learning story in his podcast, Catch Up, Keep Up, and Get Ahead with Sylvan Learning. Here is Ed Bahoura.
Welcome to Catch Up, Keep Up, Get Ahead with Sylvan Learning Detroit. Hi, I'm Ed Bahoura, your host and franchisee owner of 13 Sylvan Learning Territories in Southeast Michigan. Our guest today is Dan West, president of the Livonia-Westland Chamber of Commerce. They represent more than 1,200 members serving business community focused on the 8th and 9th largest cities in Michigan. The Livonia-Westland Chamber of Commerce is Michigan's 6th largest chamber of commerce. Dan, welcome to the show.
Ed, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Please give us an overview of the Livonia-Westland Chamber. What would you like the listeners to know?
To put it simplistically, we are cheerleaders and connectors for our business community. Livonia and Westland, we combined our business communities last fall. And, now with as you said, the 8th and 9th largest cities, we represent 180,000 residents, some 6,800 business addresses, 1,200 members now, but we have 2 community college school districts, 3 public school districts, and Livonia Public Schools in both towns. We share a lot of things. So together, we're trying to leverage that collaboration and neighborly spirit to grow business opportunities for our members and to promote both towns. But again, as I said earlier, we are cheerleaders, we're connectors. But our 3 probably bigger focuses that we work on is building the future workforce, regional collaboration, and building a culture of inclusion. Those are the 3 things we kind of rally around in our programming. And it's served us well through the years, and we hope to build off of that.
That's great, Dan. I recently joined the chamber and am so impressed with the diversity of businesses and organizations. We're in the education business. What is the value for us to be involved?
I believe that one of the biggest fundamental things that I see in my job is to get the business and education communities on the same page. Years ago, I saw a presentation where the college degrees that are given out by Michigan universities and our workforce needs, there is such a disconnect. And I think it's because business thinks they understand education, education thinks they understand business. And I think that we have to get both of them to collaborate more with each other so they understand better the needs of what the future workforce needs, but also how to guide young people and their families and their passions and their interests and their skills into the fields of where there's demand. And that is one thing that I think a Chamber of Commerce can be very helpful for with education.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You do such a great job helping members connect and encourage collaboration. And have introduced me to other members as well. Thank you for that. Just recently, I took part in the Livonia Bounce Back to School event, and met a lot of people there. It was very successful. There must have been maybe 600 or 700 kids and families there. Can you share with us some other success stories of members networking with each other?
We've had a lot of small businesses that started by going to our networking events. And they go to community events like that. Livonia is a very, very community-minded, family-oriented, loyal place. Westland is as well. Both towns are very much about neighborhoods, backyards, schools, sports, arts, recreation, all that stuff. And so that's where you get to meet a lot of people. That's where you get to become human to a lot of people because they see you with your families. They see you at a community event, a church event, a school event, what have you. And they realize that you truly are invested in this place. And when you do an event, Ed, like when Sylvan Learning did the Bounce Back to School event, you become more real. They see the people that do it, and they realize that you're just not a banner. You're a person that brings us up. But nonetheless, through the chamber, we always try to do introductions, and we encourage people to go to community events. We encourage people to be out and about and seen, because ultimately people invest in people. They don't invest in companies. And they build that trust and they get to know, and you become more top of mind for referrals in the future when you see people face to face. Well, I'll say one of the big success stories that we have seen through the years. One of our current board members today, Joel Wheaton, started a carpet and floor cleaning company called Greener Method. And he literally started out of his garage and started going to networking events about 12 years ago. And he just grinded it out. He got referrals, he met people, and he grew through word of mouth. And now he's like, I think, in his third different building now, because he continues to grow. He's added vehicles, he's added fleet, he's added workers, and now he's got a pretty good foothold on a lot of the carpet cleaning and floor cleaning business, and also some of the stormwater damage restoration work in the area. And it all started with one relationship at a time, one networking event at a time through our chamber.
That's great, Dan. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to sponsor I think it was called Cocktails on the Patio event a couple weeks ago. It was in mid-July or late July.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another networking event that you're talking about. And, after my presentation, at least a dozen people approached me, gave me their cards. One of them was from Aflac Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already met with them 2 or 3 times, and I'm buying like health benefits for my employees.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, absolutely, networking is a big part of the chamber, and I really appreciate all the networking opportunities that the chamber does give us. Dan,
Ed,
as a dad, what would you say to parents about the value of education and tutoring?
as what I would say as a parent is that it is important to trust the process of learning and realizing that failure and disappointment is a part of that learning. Part of, we're just not there to get A's. We're there to make sure we understand concepts. We're there to make sure we critically think. And if we're just regurgitating information on tests and getting A's, that's not necessarily effective learning, or that should not be the only part of the learning process. And I think part of the learning process is realizing, hey, I got that wrong, or I got to change the way I look at that, or I got to study harder at this. It's identifying what areas I need to spend more time concentrating on and less time. Like for me, I was never the biggest, I knew math and science pretty well, but I wasn't the strongest with reading and comprehension. I had to fail some tests to realize, hey, I got to work harder at this to get better at that. And I went on to become a writer and a journalist, through that process. So it is so important for parents and kids to realize, and I'm also a coach for sports teams as well. It's so important to realize that failure will not prevent you from reaching your goals. Fear will. And so many people are fearing of making a mistake that it handcuffs their ability to learn. And so as a dad, I think it's so important for kids to go through the educational process and experience disappointments, because it helps them embrace what they need to do to learn, and realizing that disappointments often inspire us to make the changes, productive changes that we need to make in our lives.
That's great, Dan. What advice do you have for people to make the most out of their chamber membership?
Well, you talked about that networking event you were at last month with us, Ed, and you did a good job of working the room. And that's what a lot of people do. Some people go to a networking event and go hide in the corner. You got to realize at a networking event, everybody there is kind of knows why they're all there. Take advantage of that opportunity to shake hands and introduce yourself, but also realize that you're not going to make a deal the first time you meet them. It's part of a process of getting to build relationships, get to learn, get to be appreciated, build a trust with one another. I think it's absolutely vital that you go through that process, because this is how, you don't know when the referral is going to come. Like you meet somebody 4 or 5 times at networking events, and you may not get something right away, but all of a sudden they have a friend saying, hey, I need somebody to do carpet cleaning. My kid's struggling in school. What do you recommend? Hey, you got to go meet Ed at Sylvan Learning. Okay. You never know when that referral is going to come, but you have to build that relationship and become top of mind with people, become a known commodity with people to get those referrals when the timing comes to be. A lot of business is timing. not necessarily right at that moment, but eventually down the line when you get with that. So, as I said earlier, people invest in people, not with companies. And that's why it's important to network. And I think we really learned this through the COVID era when we were limited with what we could do socially. And it's one thing that a lot of us have talked about in the business world. You grow your business face to face. You don't grow your business virtually. There's something about the nonverbal communications and that personal interaction where you build more trust and rapport with people as opposed to doing it virtually. You're more attentive to people when you're face to face. And I think that's all part of a communication and networking process that chambers do make available to people who are willing to embrace the opportunities.
I totally agree with that one, Dan. Dan, you not only encourage members to network and collaborate with others, but it's something you do yourself, serving on boards and collaborating with other organizations. Can you share the value of that?
Um, I'm a journalist by trade. That's what I went to college for. And the fundamental thing that I think that got me interested in journalism was just being curious. And I think it's always good to be curious. It's always good to understand how things tick, why you made the decision you did, why you made that adjustment. And I believe, I'm a nonprofit executive, but I can learn from other industries. I think everybody can learn from other industries. So be curious, ask questions, ask, Ed, through the career that you did, you ran a lot of stores throughout your career. Like, why did you make certain adjustments? What caused you to make certain changes? And when to buy, when to sell, when to change the floor, when to make adjustments to your hours and stuff like that. What you did as a store owner, I could use in what I do in the chamber world. So in the business world and in chambers, you generally are surrounded by motivated, upbeat people. Take advantage of that energy. People generally like to talk about themselves and what they're doing. Ask them questions. Take advantage of that. Take that wisdom in. Take that knowledge in. That's where the collaboration can be very helpful to you. And it's also just fun to learn about other industries. What's great about my job, I hear what manufacturing's doing, what education's doing, what banking's doing, what hospitality's doing. I get to hear from all these different industries, and it's fun to learn because we're all interchangeable in a bigger economy. And it's important to see how all those things come together.
That's great. Dan, you introduced me a couple of months ago to Fostering Leadership Academy and the incredible work that they're doing over there.
Mhm.
And I know you sit on the board. Can you just briefly tell us what and who they are and what they do and who they serve?
Fostering Leadership Academy is a charter school that was developed by the Methodist Children's Home Family Services Program in Redford. And what they wanted to do is develop a unique school, a K through 8 school for kids that have been traumatized. So there's a lot of foster kids. There's a lot of adopted kids. Some kids that have been adopted multiple times for various things. And it is taking time to check in with those kids and check their mental and well-being. I mean, a lot of these kids from day to day are sleeping in different places. They don't know where they're going to get their next meal at. And it's very hard to learn when you're battling to survive like that. And this school has specialized training for their staff to help them realize what's happening and how to adjust to them, to give them space, when to talk to them, how to let them vent, realizing that if they had a traumatic time last night where maybe they got kicked out of a house or they didn't eat last night, they didn't shower, what have you, that may not be the time to dog them about their grades, for example. Okay, it's recognizing what they're going through. And that school really does a really good job of specializing that. They keep it to 10 to 15 kids per class. They have like emotional check-ins throughout the day, and it really helps to give them a chance to learn. And so that's proud to be on that board since its inception in 2020.
That's great. The our show is not only about education and school, but I wanted also to bring in that sense of reality. That what is really going on in our neighborhoods. Like, for example, this bounce back to school event that took place that I took part in. It
Mhm.
just it kind of blew me away with, like, you could see the different kind of people
Mhm.
that, on the socioeconomic scale.
Mhm.
And it was amazing to see that the school system is catering to all these people. And again, I want to bring awareness to, for example, this Fostering Leadership Academy. So school is just not about like our regular schools or our private Catholic schools. There are also schools for, you know, unfortunately, for youngsters that, like you said, have been traumatized. And I want to use this show to bring awareness to that. And thank you again. I just want to thank you for sitting on that board and giving them your love and your support.
Well, and Ed, education, I think, is no different than, you've been in business for many years, Ed, and you learn when managing people, you have to recognize that everybody's got a different skill set. Everybody's got a different way of how they operate and how they tick and how they respond. And education is no different. Every one of us is different. And any manager, any teacher, any leader has to find a way of what makes that person tick and connect with them and validate how they do. And that's how you get the most out of them. And I feel that way about education. I feel that way about management and in work and in life.
That's awesome. Dan, some business owners may feel like they are falling behind. What advice would you give them to catch up, keep up, and get ahead in business?
Always make time on a consistent basis to plan and to learn and make that a structure of what you do. I mean, particularly a lot of small business owners, they got families, they're operating 12, 14, 16 hours a day. They got, they've got old, you got older parents, you're taking care of your kids, you're trying to operate this business, you're trying to grow. And sometimes you get caught up in the rut of the day-to-day routine. Always make some time, whether a half hour here, hour there, to research your industry, to plan how to grow things in the future and how to execute that plan, to get out to networking events, to find a way to market yourself and stuff like that. It just don't get up in the daily grind so much. I know it's easy to do it because there's a lot to be done, but you got to discipline yourself to have a structure with that. And then what also I would also add is that when you have a good day, when you have a good month, when you're making progress growing a market or something like that, take time to sit back and say, hey, we did that. Enjoy the success that you had, appreciate what you did, give a compliment to your staff and stuff like that, and realize that you did do that because God knows it's hard enough getting the work done all the time. But just don't say, okay, good, that's done, and move on to the next thing. This is something that I myself have to work on sometimes because we get caught up so much in such the work we do that we have to sit back and say, hey, we did that well. We did that well. And it's important to share that with your team. But I would say continue to work on planning and learning and getting better in your industry, and then find ways to work that in to your everyday operation.
I would agree with that, Dan. And I want to add one more thing to what you said. And everything you said was, right on, because I've been in business for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I realize now with Sylvan, um, August 11th was our 1 year anniversary. Um, you know, uh, I bought this company and I bought the extra territory because I knew how important education was, especially after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being very, very aggressive at expanding my market and getting new business. So we've had a very good first year. And the point I want to make is that don't forget um, your executives and the management that is helping you get to your goals. And if you need to share in that financial success by showing them your appreciation, giving them raises, giving them benefits, giving them paid time off, giving them, other benefits that would help them, live their life better. They'd have more resources to take care of their family. So yes, it's great to be successful, but if you really want to be successful, you have to take care of the people that got you there. That's the one thing I really want to point out to all the business owners that may be listening. As far as what you said and what you need to do, and I concur with that. And
Well,
Dan,
if I can add one, Ed, if I can add one thing, I
yes,
agree
please
that
go ahead.
every employee needs to feel valued and appreciated and validated. And another way to do that is ask their opinion. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of the operation. You may not necessarily agree with everything they say, and maybe they have a good idea that you never considered, but ask them their opinion. How do we get better in this? Just don't, the manager should never think they know it all. Tap their staff, especially the staff that's at the street level dealing with customers every day. It is important to get their opinion in that as well.
Totally agree, Dan. Dan, one last thing, and what else would you like to mention before we close the show?
Well, Ed, we just recently opened a Westland office. So we now have chamber offices for our organization in Livonia and Westland. And both offices have 2 meeting spaces available for our members. You can do 20, 25 person presentations. You can have small meeting. You can have a smaller room for 2, 3 people for those independent business people that don't want to meet in a house or a coffee shop. They can use the space available at either one or Livonia or Westland office. So that's a value that we provide for our membership in both communities, and we're proud that we're able to add a second location in Westland for that. But beyond that, Ed, we have a variety of networking, educational, and informational events throughout the year. We bring them in both cities. And if you can go to www.livoniawestland.org or call our chamber office. The phone number rings at both offices. That's at 734-427-2122. And you can find out our upcoming events, or if you have any questions about what's going on as well. So again, livoniawestland.org or 734-427-2122 if you want to reach out to us and learn more about what we're doing.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dan. And thank you for taking part in our show today.
I appreciate you inviting me, Ed.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to catch up, keep up, and get ahead with Sylvan Learning. If you want more information on Sylvan Learning and tutoring for your children, as well as if you are institutional facility, a principal, a superintendent, you'd like to hear more about our services that we offer, please don't hesitate to call us. The phone number is 1-800-EDUCATE, and our website is sylvandetroit.com. Thank you.
Be sure to tune in to the next episode of Catch Up, Keep Up, and Get Ahead with Sylvan Learning, hosted by Ed Bahoura.